Today I'm going to give away a free t-shirt, bring you a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, bring you comics news, and reveal the books I bought this week. How y'all doing? I'm Victor, and you are watching the Comic Hero Show. Now kick that logo! Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. I hope you all are staying safe throughout this pandemic. And if you live in a state or a country that's issued a stay-at-home order, please, I ask that you continue to adhere to that. And I hear that a lot of states, here in America are reopening. You know, that's great and all, but I believe we should all continue to socially distance ourselves from each other. For me, that's kind of it's something that I'm not really used to because me, I'm a handshaker, I'm a hugger. And, I just love the company of people. But this virus, this COVID-19 is very serious. It's killed so many people throughout the world. And, I personally don't want to be a statistic to that. It's killed so many people, but a lot more people have recovered from it, which is great. But I don't want to fall. I don't want to fall under the statistic of being tested positive for it, and I don't want any of that for y'all. All right, it's going to be a great show. Gonna have a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight of my creation. There's some comics news to cover, some new books. Well, let's kick it off like we usually do. Give away a free t-shirt. All right, on last week's episode, I asked, besides the Silver Surfer, name at least one former Herald of Galactus. Now, I kind of changed the question after finding out a list of characters that were that used to be Heralds of Galactus, and not all of them are Marvel characters. Now, you could have said Firelord, Stardust, Redshift, Airwalker, Terrax, Morg, Nova, Fallen One, Dazzler, Destroyer, Thor, Human Torch, Drax, Sabretooth, Iron Man, She-Hulk, Ant-Man, May Parker, Tyrant, and you could have also gone outside of the Marvel Universe and said Superman. All of them have served as the Herald of Galactus. And 6 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their name's been entered in a drawing for a free tee. And that drawing takes place right now. So the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is the Gray Man. Now, this is someone who has answered directly from YouTube. So congratulations, you win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. All right, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is a Batman question. Which Batman villain was temporarily banned by the Comic Code Authority in 1954? Now, here's a hint. This character debuted in Batman #1 in 1940. And then here's a very, very easy hint. This character has been played by Lee Merriweather, Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, and Anne Hathaway. Everyone who answers correctly been entered in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. Now, the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, I usually leave that up to viewers and fans of the show to come up with fight requests. But because there really haven't been any as of late, I decided to come up with one, and this one features 2 fiery characters who could kill you both in their both ways, in their own ways. Representing DC, we have Tar Pit And representing Marvel, we have the Molten Man. These two are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today, it's Tar Pit versus Molten Man. Tar Pit can trap people in his body made of molten asphalt, throw pieces of the asphalt at others, and possesses invulnerability. Molten Man is a genius chemical engineer. His organic liquid metal alloy grants him superhuman strength, durability and endurance, radiation projection, and heat generation. Who would win? Molten Man did his homework on Tar Pit. He knows he isn't going to win this fight by using heat because Tar Pit feeds off of heat. Tar Pit would start off by throwing asphalt at Molten Man, but the latter knocks each chunk of asphalt away and begins to slowly walk forward. Then, without warning, Tar Pit traps Molten Man inside of his body made of tar. Tar Pit wins. But wait! Molten Man actually let this happen. Only seconds later, Tar Pit begins to grow in size. He thinks he's won the fight by absorbing the heat from Molten Man. What he didn't know is that he's about to absorb Molten Man's other power, and not in a good way. He begins to lose mobility and stability. This gives Molten Man the opportunity to escape Tar Pit's body before the latter becomes a huge pond of non-living tar. The result? Molten Man's radiation. The tar didn't die, but the man made of tar did. Molten Man wins, and that concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Alright, I hope y'all enjoyed that fight, and I'll have another one next week. Now it's time for Comically Speaking, so without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, there are three things we're going to talk about in this segment of Comically Speaking, and the first one is some very unfortunate news. Now, a while back, the folks over San Diego Comic-Con had announced that they were either going, that due to the COVID-19 virus, that they were either going to, they were debating on whether they wanted to cancel it or postpone it. Well, I found out last week they are postponing, they are canceling the event for the year. Now keep in mind, San Diego Comic-Con is in 3 months, but there's really no way of knowing how soon the curve is going to be flattened in terms of the COVID-19 virus. So I get it. You know, the organizers of this event are keeping the fans and the guest safety in mind. And I always considered San Diego Comic-Con to be the granddaddy of them all in terms of Comic-Cons. I mean, the big guests come here. Comic book artists, comic book writers, comic book movie stars, all them. And then also, that's where you find the big news. That's where you find out the big news. Whether it be comic books, whether it be comic book movies, whether it be comic book TV shows, anything like that, you come to this con. And, I get it. And it makes sense. I mean, because our safety is the most important thing right now. And, the social distancing is something that right now is a must. And, but don't worry. If you bought tickets to this event, you will be refunded. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You will be refunded. And then, but again, it'll be back next year, and who knows? I may even be there. All right, now the next two things are on two much lighter notes. Now, after last month, Diamond had said that they were going to not ship any books to comic book stores for the time being, or until the curve is completely flattened with the COVID-19, or if it's starting to flatten. Well, I have news that Diamond has announced that they are going to start back shipping books to comic book stores beginning May 17th. Now, May 17th is on a Sunday, so what that means for me and all you other comic book nerds out there, that means we'll be able to buy books on Wednesday, May 20th. I mean, this is great. You know, I don't mind, going the whole online route, but going to comic book stores, I mean, it almost feels like you're part of you're part of a fraternity or sorority, and you're going inside the clubhouse, and that's just great. Now they're going to ship every publication except one, and that brings me to my last subject. DC has announced that they will have new comics shipped through 2 new distributors, and those distributors are Lunar and UCS. Now they're going to ship depending on what side of the country you live on. If you live close to the west side, Lunar will ship to the comic book store near you. If you live close to the east side, UCS will ship to comic book stores near you. Now, let me tell you something about these two distributors. Lunar is the sister company of the massive comic book mail order service called Discount Comic Book Service, and UCS is the sister company to Midtown Comics in New York. And DC for the longest time has been with Diamond, but they felt like they kind of got used. So when it was announced that Diamond was going to no longer ship comics to the comic book stores, they decided to cut the cord and look elsewhere. And there's always pros and cons to something like this. The pro is that they no longer feel, because they no longer feel like they're part of, DC will no longer feel like they're part of monopoly with Diamond. And from what I've read, that's actually true. Now the con is that it's probably going to be very costly to comic book store owners, and I get it, but and I'm not going to be like one of those blowhards who will say, well, I don't care how I get them as long as I get them. No. I'm very considerate towards others. And if you're a comic book store owner, and all I have to say is that if you need some help, just let me know. I'll do everything I can to help. And then not just me, but all other comic book readers. I mean, we may not. I mean, there might be a lot of us that don't really show up, but we're really considerate towards the people that we buy comics from. We really are. And I can tell you that this is going to get a lot better before it gets worse. All right, that's it for Comically Speaking. Now let's get to the comics I bought this week.
Comic books I bought this week.
All right, first up is Superman Villains. Now this is the second one-shot that serves as a fallout to Superman revealing his identity to the public. Now the first one was Superman Heroes. Now we learn from the perspective of the heroes. This one we learn from the perspective of the villains, and I can't wait to read it. All right, next up is Outlawed. This is a fallout from the Marvel one-shot title Incoming, and this one also sets the tone. Now this one, because of something that Ms. Marvel does, all teenage superheroes are prevented from fighting crime, and if doing so will put them in the slammer. All right, and lastly, Rescue. Rescue number 1. This is a 2-part miniseries that's a miniseries within the Iron Man 2020 miniseries. And in this one, Pepper Potts puts on her old rescue suit, and she goes out to find a way to get Tony Stark's conscience from his AI and into a real body. All right, that's 3, which brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 9,956. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and here's a question again for a free tee for next week's episode of the show. Which Batman villain was temporarily banned by the Comic Code Authority in 1954? Now, here are 2 hints. 1, this character debuted in Batman #1 in 1940. 2, Lee Merriweather, Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, and Anne Hathaway all played this character in the big and small screens. Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tea on next week's episode of the show, and congratulations to the Gray Man who won a free tea on this week's episode. Alright, with the count being at 9,956, I'm now 44 away from 10,000 comics. And honestly, I can't wait for that to reach that milestone. And now with new books coming out, that's going to make the road even closer. Oh, and one other thing that I forgot to mention about the new distributors, you can go ahead and order. They have a list of books. There are a list of books that are out. I know 2 of them are Batman: The Outsiders and Batman. And contact your comic book, your local comic book store or one nearby, and see what they have, and then go ahead and order them for you. All right. I just hope that y'all continue to keep safe through this pandemic. I mean, we're all gonna get through this, but only if we're apart. We can only be together if we're apart first, and that's what I'm gonna do. All right, I'm Victor Nunley. I'm the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 308. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.